Good evening. Before proceeding with the formal business of the meeting, I would like to ask Pastor Stephen Oleyinka of Water Springs Christian Centre, Luton, to lead us in prayer.
Shall we all remain seated? All remain standing today. Let us pray. Father, Lord in heaven, we thank you for this beautiful moment. We thank you for the Luton Borough Council. We thank you for being God over the whole universe. Today, I ask, O Lord, that as we are about to start this meeting, I pray for every executive, as some are resuming today and some are exiting. I pray for the outgoing one that the Lord will be with them. I pray for the incoming executive that the Lord will grant them wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And I pray that as they promulgate decrees and formulate policies that has to do with the governance of the Luton people, I pray that you will grant them strength, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, that they will serve this community and they will take this community to the next level. And the name of this community, Luton Council, will remain great. I pray as they will be bringing out policies that will help the vulnerable and everyone in the community, even the Luton Airport, and everyone that has to do with this council. I pray that you will help them, that they will govern and they will work well together in peace, that everything they do shall come out well for them. So therefore, I open this meeting in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. Good evening and welcome to this annual meeting of the Council. Before we begin, would members please sit in their allocated seats, silence their mobile phones, stand up when proposing and seconding items, and switch off their microphones on and off immediately to speak. If there is an emergency, turn left out of the chamber, follow the green emergency exit signs to the main town hall entrance, and assemble in St. George's Square. Please note, this meeting is being live streamed to the public. Any members of the public present are entitled to take photographs, film, audio record, and report on the business held in public, but must not act in a disruptive manner. If they do so, they may be asked to leave. Please also note that voting will be by exception. Rather than calling out each member's name to record their vote, members will be asked to indicate if they wish to vote against a motion. If no member votes against, the item will be declared as carried. The outcomes will not be recorded in the minutes unless 6 members of the Council indicate that they wish for this to happen, in accordance with Standing Order 21.2. Before we proceed with the formal business, it is my sad duty to report the death of Barbara Davies, a long-standing resident of the Limbury Ward and a former county councillor. Does any member wish to speak? Councillor Rob Roach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to speak on behalf of the Old Limbury Ward, myself and Councillor Amy Nichols on Barbara. Just a few words about her, if I may. I first became aware of Barbara in my role as Secretary of the Limbury Labour Group, in which she was previously very active. Barbara did not have any email address, so I had to take the minutes round to her home, and I would spend many time there just talking about the Labour Party, about politics in general, and really got to know her quite well. And myself and Councillor Amy Nichols on canvassing, when we'd knock on the door, we'd probably spend the whole evening there, in all fairness, because she really wanted to speak how the Limbury Labour Party was doing and how the local Labour Party was doing. She was always asking after the welfare of Kelvin Hopkins, who she admired immensely, and was delighted whilst canvassing when Rachel Hopkins was with us, and Rachel couldn't get off the doorstep either. Barbara was born in Luton, and she moved to Ardouce Close around 1960. She and others from Ardouce Close and the Riverside and the members of the Limbury Labour Group were active in cleaning up the river and campaigned for more support from the council to keep that area tidy. The shared cycle and walkway we see and use on a regular basis today is because of Barbara and that group from Ardouce Close and Riverside and the endless campaigning to the council to have that pathway alongside the river so that everyone can enjoy that beautiful green space that we see today. Barbara became a Labour representative and part of the Labour group that controlled the county council around 1972. We did not have a borough framework then, and all political matters was run through the county council, and she held her seat for around 6 years. Barbara was leader of a steering group that merged Stockwood Park and Rotherham School. Both schools put up a resistance. They did not want to merge to happen. But Barbara knew that due to the lack of pupils, it had to go forward. I am told that Barbara handled the issue with great leadership, sensitivity and good compromises to an outcome which was agreed by all that was involved. Barbara was supportive of the Eastern Region's drive to raise the involvement of women in the Labour Party, and even back in those early years, she supported all the local women groups. Barbara had a strong Christian faith, attending the Holy Trinity Christian Church in Biscuit early in the 1960s, and then became very involved in the development of St Augustine's Church in Catchbrook Road, which was consecrated in the 1960s. Barbara stayed involved with many outreach and community incentives in later life and was respected by neighbours, friends and colleagues. For me, it's sad that we lose a former local politician from Limbury at the same time we lose Limbury Wall, which I know has been of a great concern to the Labour group members of Limbury and would have been to Barbara. I just want to say rest in peace, Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Right, I invite the council to stand in silent tribute in memory of the late Barbara Davies. Please be seated. The first item of business is to elect the Mayor. I call upon Councillor Fatima Begum.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I nominate that Councillor Yaqub Hanif be and is hereby elected Mayor of the Borough of Luton.
Thank you. I call upon Councillor Alia Khan to second the nomination.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Are there any other speakers to the nomination? Are there any other nominations? As there are no other nominations, I declare that Councillor Yaqub Hanif is elected Mayor of the Borough of Luton. I invite Councillor Hanif to come to the dais to make a declaration of acceptance of office. A special meeting of the Council will be held on Monday, the 10th of July 2023 at 6 p.m. to invest the newly elected Mayor.
Mr. Mayor-elect, I have the honour to ask you to sign a formal declaration of acceptance of your office.
On behalf of the Council of this borough, you are now formally invested with the chain and badge of office of Mayor.
The next item is the appointment of Deputy Mayor. I call upon Councillor Tamina Salim.
I propose that Councillor Zainab Raja be elected as Deputy Mayor at the Borough of Luton.
I now call upon Councillor Amy Nichols to second the nomination.
Second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other speakers to the nomination? As there are no other nominations, I declare that Councillor Zainab Raja is elected Deputy Mayor. I invite Councillor Raja to sign the declaration of acceptance of office.
Madam Deputy Mayor-elect, I have the honour to ask you to sign the formal declaration of acceptance of your office.
Are there any apologies for absence from this meeting?
Amjad Ali, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I have received formal apologies from Councillor Aslam Khan.
Would members please note that it is planned to receive a presentation on the Annual Public Health Report 2023 at the next full council meeting to be held on 18th of July 2023, so that members have sufficient time to ask any questions on the report. The next item of business is to receive the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on 21st of March 2023, as set out on pages 7 to 11. Does the Council approve the minutes and agree to me signing them as a correct record?
Agreed.
Mr. Mayor, I have received the following disclosures of interest. Councillor Hanif, agenda item 25, as a prospective director of London Luton Airport. Councillor Nichols, agenda item 25, as a prospective director of London Luton Airport. Mark Turner, service director, London Luton Airport Limited, and monitoring officer, agenda item 25. Members, please note that when we reach agenda item 25, the Mayor will vacate his seat and the Deputy Mayor will take the chair for this item. Mark Turner will also vacate the monitoring officer's seat and the Council will be advised by the Deputy Monitoring Officer, Samantha McKeenan. Also, please note that members who are to be appointed to the Airport Board by the Executive immediately following this meeting should also disclose an interest in relation to the notice of motion at agenda item 25 and leave the meeting for the duration of that item. Members should remain in the building, however, for the meetings of the Executive, and all committees take place immediately following the annual meeting. So please don't disappear. And register Councillor Javira Hussein's disclosure of interest, and also Khatija Malik and James Taylor. Thank you.
The next item of business is to elect the executive leader.
No.
Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, the persons listed on pages 12 to 13 of the agenda were returned as councillors for the 20 wards of the borough and have all made and subscribed the requisite declaration of acceptance of office as councillors.
The next item of business is to elect the executive leader, and I call upon Councillor Rob Roach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I nominate Councillor Simmons for appointment as executive leader for the term of office of 4 years, ending on the day of the annual meeting of the Council to be held in 2027. Thank you.
Is the motion seconded? Are there any speakers to the motion? Are there any other nominations? As there are no other nominations, Councillor Simmons is appointed executive leader. I now invite Councillor Simmons to deal with agenda item 10. I will remind members that for this vote to pass, no single member must vote against the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations to you and to the Deputy Leader. And I'm going to ask indulgence of Council this evening. I want to apologise. I have an ear infection and I am deaf. So for the first time and only time, please, if you need to talk to me, could you shout? Because I might be able to hear you. But do accept my apologies. I'm not ignoring anyone. I'm very deaf this evening. I'll now move back onto the agenda, and I move that the alternative arrangements to those prescribed by sections 15 and 16 of the Housing and Local Government Act 1989 be adopted by Council in relation to the bodies shown at item 7 on the agenda this evening.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any other questions? Are there any amendments? Does any member wish to speak to the motion? Thank you. The motion is before Council. Does any member vote against? Thank you. The motion is carried. I now call upon Councillor Simmons to move agenda item 11.
I move that under Section 15 of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989, Council determine that the allocation to the different political groups on the various committees be as set out in the table on page 19.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any amendments? Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Therefore, the motion is before the Council. Does any member vote against? Thank you. The motion is carried. I now call upon Councillor Simmons to move agenda item 8.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that the membership of the committees of the Council, pools and panels be as set out on the schedule circulated separately this evening.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any questions? Are there any amendments? Does any member wish to speak to the motion? Therefore, the motion is before the Council. Does any member vote against the proposal? The motion is carried. I call upon Councillor Simmons to move agenda item 10.
I move that the membership and procedure for the appointments panel and redeployment panel be as circulated separately this evening.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any amendments? Are there any speakers to the motion? The motion is before the Council. Does any member vote against? The motion is carried. I call upon Councillor Simmons to move agenda item 14.
I move that the membership and procedure for the Housing Appeal and Review panel be as circulated separately this evening.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any amendments? Are there any speakers to the motion? Okay. The motion is therefore before the Council. Does any member vote against? The motion is carried. I call upon Councillor Simmons to move agenda item 15.
I move that the membership and procedure for the Investigations and Disciplinary Committee and the Disciplinary Appeals Committee be as circulated separately.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any amendments? Are there any speakers to the motion? The motion is before the Council. Does any member vote against? The motion is carried. I call upon Councillor Simmons to move agenda item 16.
I move that the membership of executive advisory groups, strategic programme boards and other bodies be as set out on the schedule circulated separately, and that the executive bodies indicated with an asterisk be commended to the executive for approval. I further move that the names of Labour members to serve on the Corporate Parenting Board shall be Councillors Fatima Begum, Yaram Begum and Tamina Salim.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any amendments? Are there any speakers to the motion? The motion is before the Council. Does any member vote against? The motion is carried. I now call upon Councillor Simmons to move agenda item 17.
I move the representation and governance arrangements to apply to the Health and Wellbeing Board be as set out in the recommendations at paragraph 2.1 and 2 on page 20.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any amendments? Are there any speakers to the motion? Therefore, the motion is before the Council. Does any member vote against? The motion is carried. I now invite Councillor Simmons to deal with agenda item 18.
I move the recommendation in relation to the political balance to apply to and the Council's representation on the Bedfordshire Police and Crime Panel as set out in recommendations at paragraph 2, 1 and 2 of the report circulated separately.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Councillor Ghulam Abbas, Basit Mahmood and Steve Moore are appointed to the Bedfordshire Police and Crime Panel for the period to the annual council meeting in May 2027. I now invite Councillor Simmons to deal with agenda item 19.
Thank you. I nominate Councillors Amjad Ali, Jackie Burnett, Mahmood Hussain and Salma Hussain for the appointment as the Council's representatives on the Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Authority, with Councillor Burnett as the Council's spokesperson.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Councillors Amjad Ali, Jackie Burnett, Mahmood Hussain and Salma Hussain are appointed as the Council's representative of the Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Authority, with Councillor Burnett as the Council's spokesperson. I call upon Councillor Simmons to move agenda item 20.
I'm in moving the recommendation. Please note one further change in the dates. It's already been highlighted by the Mayor that the investiture will be held on Monday the 10th of July at 6 o'clock and not the 13th of June as set out in the calendar. So please amend that. Subject to that change, I move the recommendation set out at paragraph 2 on page 31.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any amendments? Are there any speakers to the motion? The motion is therefore before the Council. Does any member vote against? The motion is carried. I call upon Councillor Simmons to move agenda item 21.
I move that those listed on page 42 be appointed to serve on the independent panel on members' allowances.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any amendments? Are there any speakers to the motion? The motion is before the Council. Does any member vote against? I invite Councillor... The motion is carried. Apologies. I invite Councillor Simmons to deal with agenda item 22.
With effect from today's date, in addition to myself, I have appointed the following to be members of the Executive. Councillors Fatima Begum, Javed Hussain, Aslam Khan, Tamina Salim, Maria Lovell, Kachita Malik, Rob Roach, Tom Shaw and James Taylor. The allocation of executive portfolios has been circulated around the Chamber for your information.
The next item is agenda item 23, delegation of authority to Deputy Chief Executive. I call upon Councillor Simmons to move the recommendation.
I move the recommendation set out at paragraph 2.1 and 2.2 circulated separately.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any questions? Are there any amendments? Does any member wish to speak to the motion? The motion is therefore before the Council. Does any member vote against the proposal? The motion is carried. I call upon Councillor Franks to please ask his question of Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Luton Borough Council has entered into an arrangement with Arpeggio Properties Limited for the company to provide 138 vacant flats in Bedford for use by the Council. Would Councillor Simmons please let us know how many innocent families have been subject to Section 21 evictions or are under notice of eviction from their homes in order to make the flat vacant when made available to Luton Borough Council.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm nominating Councillor Shaw to respond to that question.
Tom.
No evictions have taken place, Mr Mayor.
If I may follow that up, does Councillor Shaw know when evictions are likely to happen? Because Section 21 notices had been issued.
Yes, Mr Mayor. We don't know if any evictions will take place because this council, a Labour council, has done a good job with the negotiations, because what we managed to get is an agreement out to the people what have bought the block that they will handle everything in a sensitive manner and they will not evict unless they have to. So as of yesterday, no one had been evicted. But I read the stuff what Councillor Franks in his press release he's put in the paper and everything. It's a little bit like the focus he put out during election time. Doesn't bear any resemblance to the truth at all. What it does is just make up what we can, bang it in there and see what happens. I'll tell you what's happened. April 2021, Bedford Borough was made aware of these properties. Want to see the emails? Got every one of them here. They were made aware that the properties were on the market and would they like to be interested in buying them. But being a Liberal Democrat administration, they couldn't really care less about the people in Bedford. So they did absolutely nothing about it. So what happens next? They approached us. Like, we've got a lot of properties in this town that are leased out to London boroughs. We wish they weren't. They approached us. We've got an homeless problem. But we're a bit better than London boroughs because we're a good Labour group. We're not Liberals. We're a good Labour group. And that good Labour group managed to get an agreement out of the developers. I'll read it word for word, so you're not confused, Councillor Franks. These properties are required. The units had 7 voids, and the current position is 62 voids, over 34 households, which have secured alternative accommodation without presenting themselves homeless to Bedford Council, and moved these other households into alternative accommodation in order to create vacancies in this accommodation. The majority of these people are single people, not families. APCRO have been flexible with all residents, this is coming off them, and not placed any pressure on any of the tenants to leave these units, and are working with them to avoid anybody becoming homeless. It's even better. That's just the agreement what this good Labour Council managed to get. But the Chief Executive of Bedford sent an email on the 22nd of April 2022, and then she sent one in March. I wonder if any political pressure was put on by the bloke in Bedford what lost the mayorship, Liberal, weren't he? And he managed to lose the mayorship to do something about it, because in March this year, she knew nothing about it. But just so happens, I've got copies of the emails under Freedom of Information Act, which was a correspondence between everybody. They knew everything about it. And do you know the best thing about it, Councillor Franks? When you put it in the paper, if you got to mention that Luton Borough Council, being such a good council, has agreed 40 of the nominations can stay with Bedford Borough Council so they can keep the people that they've got in that accommodation in there. So not only we've not evicted anyone, we can't evict anyone, we don't own it. Not only we've done a deal with Bedford Borough so they can keep their 40 tenants in the flats they wanted, and we've even advised them on how to get supplementary rent so they can increase a rental stream, because that's the only thing what the Chief Executive and the ex-Liberal Mayor of Bedford was interested in, is the drain on the finances of Bedford Borough Council. So being a good Labour Council, we advised them on how they could get round that. So we've done everything we've been asked to do. We've done everything in to help the tenants, got agreement out the contractor, and no, as far as we're concerned, nobody has been evicted. You probably, unless you've got different information from me, but that was only yesterday. Nobody's been evicted. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll answer any further questions.
Is Councillor Shaw telling me that the Section 21 notices for eviction that were issued have been withdrawn?
If you knew absolutely anything about housing law, David, you'd know that the Section 21 notice, what were issued in the first place, when the block of flats was in the hands of a finance developer, all ran out over 12 months ago. They only last 6 months. And now, that was April 2022. They're not in place anymore. And that's the law, unless you're saying the developer in Bedford Borough Council. It's not with the landlord, is it? What is it now? Oh, it's only in it, yeah. What used to be Bedford Borough Council, we're going to break the law. Is that what you're saying? Because we certainly won't break the law in Luton.
It's all very interesting waffle, Mr. Mayor. Could Councillor Shaw please explain, since almost all of these 138 flats were occupied at the time the council entered into this deal with Arpeggio Properties, if no one is to be evicted, how are they going to be handed over vacant to Luton Borough Council?
Be easy, Mr. Mayor. If Councillor Franks, instead of trying to make political statements, had listened to the answer, 40 of those places were already, there were 7 empty. 40 were already let to Bedford Borough Council. They had their tenants in them. We've agreed as a council with the people that own the block that those 40 can all stay there with no problem at all. 56 people, since the deal was signed in April 22, have left of their own accord and found alternative accommodation. The rest, there is no pressure being put on them to stay, because we'll only fill it gradually. Bedford's already taken all their places, and I'd have thought the Liberals in Bedford would have said, well done to Luton for safeguarding all our people who are in this 40 accommodation, but then there was a little thing called an election came in the middle. Why let the truth get in the way of a good story, even if it's going to hurt people? And that's what you tried to do when you released that. In my opinion, when you release that, just to get a bit of cheap publicity, well, if you'd have bothered doing what I've done, and got all the emails of our chief executives, their chief executive, the copy of the agreement. Oh, and by the way, we're so bad that we've even signed, I'm quite happy to give you a copy of it, Councillor Frank, a service level agreement with Bedford Borough Council for those 40 properties so that people can stay in there. So please, let's not have any more of the nonsense. You can have that service level agreement if you want. Whoever was informing you, what was his name? Dave, weren't it? The Mayor of Bedford, gave you a bit of dodgy information. I'll give you the service level agreement signed by by senior officers from both councils.
Clearly not going to get any sensible information, Mr. Mayor. I'll leave it there.
Supplementary, Mr. Mayor. If David Franks wants the correct information, or the Liberals are interested in getting something right in this town, I will give him a copy of all this information so he can go away and check up himself. We've evicted no one. We've done a good job. We've protected Bedford people from the Liberal Democrats. He's upset about that because we've done what the Liberal Democrats in Bedford should have done. They tried it in Luton, 17 lies out of 20 in the Focus. They tried it now, but we got the evidence to prove we did our job and tried to protect Bedford people.
The next item of business is the notice of motion set out as agenda item 25. I invite all those members and officers who have disclosed an interest in this matter to leave the council chamber.
If I could just remind members not to disappear, because we have the meetings after the annual council. Thank you.
I call upon Councillor Franks to move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Looking at the various attitudes that people adopt when talking about the local plan is a really fascinating subject. It's a very comprehensive plan, subject to enormous amount of consultation, subject to line-by-line inspection and assessment by the government's planning inspectorate, and finally approved, with the government's approval also, by the council. Now, some people see the local plan as a blueprint for the future development of the town. And they believe that the actions of the council and of other interested developers, for example, should be guided by the local plan. Others think it's an interesting document which should be complied with when it's convenient and ignored when it's not. Now, it is a legal document, and you really cannot successfully run a local authority with a mixture of attitudes to the key document, which is its local plan. I formally move the motion and will rest there. In the absence of my colleague Amjad Ali, David Wynne will be seconding.
Is the motion seconded? Are there any questions? Are there any amendments?
Amendment, Madam Mayor. There should be enough for one for all members. Yeah. Have you got one? Got any for up there? Any spare? Did I finish that last time?
Madam Deputy Mayor, I think we need some advice as to whether this amendment, as drafted, negates the context of the original motion and is therefore contrary to standing orders.
I checked that, and I'm told it doesn't negate. I'll take advice, but the monitoring officer told me it didn't.
I don't see it negates.
Okay, is the amendment seconded?
Madam Mayor, did you say I can move the amendment? Apologise. This is meant to be helpful.
No, we want to know, is the amendment seconded? Sorry? Is the amendment
Seconded.
seconded?
Seconded.
Sorry. This is meant to be helpful, and I hope an amendment that maybe the opposition could incorporate in their original motion. As you can see, the Luton Council is automatically treated as an interested party. Consequently, the Planning Inspectorate do not require us to register by June the 23rd, which gives us longer time to look at comments and representations around this. Therefore, we're recommending to you that we commission a assessment by Luton Rising, commissions an assessment of the impact of its traffic modelling on any removal from Eaton Green Road that could come back to the executive, which it could look at as part of a whole picture of the issue that we could take forward in our considerations of whether we wish to support objecting to the proposed access to the airport via Eaton Green Road. We think that's the fair and proper way to do it, and that the executive think that's will give the executive time to look at that fully in the picture. So it's meant to give an opportunity to give us more time, and we would ask that that's incorporated if it is acceptable to the opposition.
Are there any other speakers to the amendment? So now call upon the seconder of the amendment to speak, Councillor Burnett. Oh. Sorry, Councillor.
Madam Deputy Mayor, I have a question on the amendment. Bearing in mind the last time a traffic impact assessment was conducted on behalf of the council for a major development, it was over the development of a swimming pool on Stopsley Common. And the impact assessment came to 200 pages and didn't mention once the road that 80% of the population have to use to get there, i.e. Stockingstone Road. So I think we could do with some assurance on the independence and expertise of the agency that will be conducting the impact assessment, and an assurance that it will be published.
I see no reason why that wouldn't be public information.
In that case, Madam Deputy Mayor, I'm inclined to ask my seconder if he agrees that we should accept the amendment.
So I now call upon the seconder of the amendment to speak, Councillor Jackie Burnett.
I'm okay, I don't need to speak.
Okay, so now call upon Councillor Franks.
I'm happy to accept the amendment, Madam Deputy Mayor.
So the amendment is before the council. Does any member vote against the proposal? Okay, the motion is carried. Are there any further amendments?
So we now then go back.
Okay, so the amended motion is before the council. Does any member vote against the proposal? Okay, the motion is carried.
You wait for everybody's confesses.
That concludes the business for the annual meeting of the Council, and I declare this meeting now closed. The meeting of the Executive and all committees of the Council will take place immediately. Would members please remain in their places?
If members would just give us a short moment whilst we replace the papers.
I invite the Executive Leader to deal with the agenda for the Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have appointed Councillor Aslam Khan as my Deputy Leader, and I have circulated the content of the Executive portfolios around the Council chamber for noting. I move that the names set out on the schedules circulated around the meeting room for appointment to outside organisations, outside corporate bodies and charities be approved. The names set out on the schedule circulated separately for appointments to other bodies be approved. The dates and times of meetings set out at Agenda 10.1 be approved. And in relation to Agenda Item 11, the relevant portfolio holder and myself be appointed as the members of the Executive to be consulted before officers take urgent action.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any speakers to the motion? Are there any amendments? Members of the Executive only, do you agree? Agree. The motion is carried. I will now deal with the Administration and Regulation Committee. Would a member of that committee please nominate a chair?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Alia Khan.
Is the motion seconded? Are there any other nominations? Members of the Administration and Regulation Committee only, do you agree? Councillor Alia Khan, you are elected Chair of the Administration and Regulation Committee. Please nominate a Vice Chair.
Mr Mayor, I nominate Councillor Ghulam Abbas as my Vice Chair.
Is a proposal seconded? Are there any other nominations? Members of the Administration and Regulation Committee only, do you agree? Councillor Abbas is elected Vice Chair. Would Councillor Alia Khan please deal with the remaining item?
Further to agenda item 7, I nominate myself and the Vice Chair as the members of the committee to be consulted before officers take urgent action.
Is the proposal seconded? Members of the Administration and Regulation Committee only, do you agree? The motion is carried. I will now deal with the Audit and Governance Committee. Will a member of that committee please nominate a chair?
Thank you, Mayor. I nominate Jackie Millard.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Members of the Audit and Governance Committee only, do you agree? Councillor Burnett, you are elected Chair of Audit and Governance Committee. Please nominate a Vice Chair.
Thank you. I nominate Councillor Farouk as my Vice Chair.
Is the proposal seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Members of the Audit and Governance Committee only, do you agree?
Agree.
Thank you. Councillor Farouk is elected Vice Chair. Would Councillor Burnett please deal with the remaining item?
Further to agenda item 7.1, further to the agenda item 7, I nominate myself and the Vice Chair as the member of the committee to be consulted before officers take urgent action.
Is the proposal seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Members of the Audit and Governance Committee only, do you agree? Agree. The motion is carried. I will now deal with the Constitution Committee. Will a member of that Constitution Committee please nominate a chair?
I nominate Councillor Javeri Hussain as the Chair.
Is the motion seconded?
So seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Are there any other nominations? Thank you. Members of the Constitution Committee only, do you agree?
Agree.
Okay. Councillor Javeri Hussain, you are elected as Chair of the Constitution Committee. Please nominate a Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I nominate Councillor Mahmood Hussain as my Vice Chair.
Is the proposal seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Members of the Constitution Committee only, do you agree?
Agree.
Councillor Mahmood Hussain is elected Vice Chair. Would Councillor Javeri Hussain please deal with the remaining item?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Further to agenda item 6, I nominate myself and the Vice Chair as the members of the committee to be consulted before officers before taking any urgent action. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the proposal seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. Members of the Constitution Committee only, do you agree?
Agreed.
Motion is carried. I will now deal with Development Management Committee. Would a member of that committee please nominate a chair?
I nominate Councillor Dave Taylor.
Is that motion seconded? Are there any other nominations? Members of Development Management Committee only, do you agree? Okay. Thank you for your enthusiasm. Councillor Dave Taylor, you are elected Chair of Development Management Committee. Please nominate a Vice Chair.
Can you hear me? It's on now. I nominate Councillor Alia Khan as my Vice Chair.
Is the proposal seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Members of Development Management Committee only, do you agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Alia Khan is elected Vice Chair. Would Councillor Dave Taylor please deal with the remaining item?
Mr Mayor, further to agenda item 7, I nominate myself and the Vice Chair as members of the committee to be consulted before officers take urgent action.
Is the proposal seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Members of Development Management Committee only, do you agree? The motion is carried. I will now deal with Licensing Committee. Would a member of that committee please nominate a chair?
I nominate Councillor Mahmood Hussain.
Is that seconded?
I second the motion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Members of Licensing Committee only, do you agree? Councillor Mahmood Hussain, you are elected Chair of Licensing Committee. Please nominate a Vice Chair. Is the proposal seconded?
Second the motion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Members of Licensing Committee only, do you agree? Agree. Thank you. Councillor Lavelle is elected Vice Chair. Will Councillor Mahmood Hussain please deal with the remaining item?
Mike.
Councillor Hussain, could you turn your mic on, please?
I have my apologies, Mr Mayor. Further to the agenda item 7, I nominate myself and the Vice Chair as the member of the committee to be consulted before urgent action is taken. Further to the agenda item 8, I move that membership of the licensing panel to be set out on the schedule circulated separately.
Thank you. Is the proposal seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Members of Licensing Committee only, do you agree? Agreed. The motion is carried. I will now deal with Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Would a member of that committee please nominate a chair?
Nominate Councillor David Wynne, Mr Mayor.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee only, do you agree? Yes. Councillor Wynne, you are elected Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Please nominate a Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I nominate Councillor Basif Mahmood and Councillor Stuart Miller as my Vice Chairs.
Is the proposal seconded?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Members of Overview and Scrutiny Committee only, do you agree? Councillor Basit Mahmood is elected Vice Chair. And Councillor Stuart Miller. Would Councillor Wynne please deal with the remaining items?
Sorry, Mr Mayor. Yes. I nominate that myself and the Vice Chair should be consulted in the event that officers need to take urgent action.
Thank you. Is the proposal seconded?
Seconded.
Members of Overview Scrutiny Committee only, do you agree? Thank you. The motion is carried. I will now deal with Overview and Scrutiny Board. Would a member of the board please nominate a chair?
Councillor David Wynne, Mr Mayor.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Members of Overview and Scrutiny Board only, do you agree? Councillor Wynne, you are elected Chair of Overview and the Scrutiny Board. Please nominate yourself to Vice Chairs.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I nominate Basil Mahmood and Miller to be elected Vice Chairs of the Overview and Scrutiny Board.
Thank you. Is the proposal seconded?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Members of Overview and Scrutiny Board only, do you agree? Councillor Bassett Mahmood and Councillor Miller, you are elected Vice Chairs of the Overview and Scrutiny Board. I will now deal with the Petitions and Representations Board. Will a member of that board please nominate a chair?
I nominate Councillor Umi Ali, Mr Mayor.
Is motion seconded?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Members of Petitions and Representation Board only, do you agree? Councillor Umi Ali, you are elected Chair of the Petitions and Representation Board. Please nominate a Vice Chair.
I nominate Councillor Dave Taylor as my Vice Chair.
Is the proposal seconded?
I second. Sorry.
Are there any other nominations? Members of the Petitions and Representations Board only, do you agree? Thank you. Councillor Dave Taylor is elected Vice Chair. Would Councillor Ali please deal with the remaining item?
Further to agenda item 7, I nominate myself and the Vice Chair as members of the committee to be consulted before officers take urgent action.
Thank you. Is the proposal seconded? Could I know the mics are a bit acting up. Could I ask members to make sure their mic is turned on?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Members of Petitions and Representations Board only, do you agree? Thank you. The motion is carried. I will now deal with the Scrutiny Children's Services Review Group. Would a member of that group please nominate a chair?
I nominate Lee Bridgen.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Members of Scrutiny Children's Services Review Group only, do you agree?
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Bridgen, you are elected Chair of the Scrutiny Children's Services Review Group. I will now deal with the Scrutiny Finance Review Group. Would a member of that group please nominate a chair?
Councillor Amjad Ali, Mr Mayor.
Is the motion seconded?
Yes, I second that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Members of Scrutiny Finance Review Group only, do you agree? Thank you. Councillor Amjad Ali is elected Chair of the Scrutiny Finance Review Group. I will now deal with the Scrutiny Health and Social Care Review Group. Would a member of that group please nominate a chair?
I nominate Councillor Underwood.
Is the motion seconded?
I second it.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Members of Scrutiny Health and Social Review Group only, do you agree? Okay, thank you. Councillor Underwood is elected Chair of the Scrutiny Health and Review Social Group. I will now deal with Standards Committee. Would a member of that committee please nominate a chair?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Amy Nichols, please, Mr Mayor.
Is a motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Members of Standards Committee only, do you agree?
Agreed.
Councillor Nichols, you are elected Chair of the Standards Committee. Please nominate a Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I nominate Councillor Steer as my Vice Chair.
Thank you. Is a proposal seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Members of Standards Committee only, do you agree?
Agree.
Thank you. Councillor Steer is elected Vice Chair. Would Councillor Nichols please deal with the remaining item?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Further to agenda item 7, I nominate myself and the Vice Chair as members of the committee to be consulted before officers take urgent action. Further to agenda item 8, I move that the membership of the local assessment panel and local adjudication panels be set out as in the Schedule 8 and A and B circulated separately.
Thank you. Is the proposal seconded? Members of Standard Committee only, do you agree?
Agree.
Motion is carried. I will now deal with the Taxi and Private Hire Licensing Committee. Will a member of that committee please nominate a chair?
I would like to nominate Councillor Abbas.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Members of Taxi Private Hire Licensing Committee only, do you agree?
Agree.
Thank you. Councillor Abbas is elected as Chair of Taxi Private Hire Licensing Committee. Would Councillor Abbas please nominate a Vice Chair?
I would like to nominate Councillor Chowdhury as Vice Chair.
The motion seconded.
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Members of Taxi and Private Hire Licensing Committee only, do you agree? Councillor Chowdhury is elected Vice Chair of Taxi and Private Hire Licensing Committee. Would Councillor Abbas please deal with the remaining item?
Thank you. I move that the membership of the Taxi and Private Hire Licensing panels be set out in the schedule circulated separately.
Thank you. Is the proposal seconded? Okay. This concludes the meetings of the Executive and all committees. Sorry. I've done that. So, members of Taxi and Private Hire Licensing Committee, do you agree? Agree. The motion is carried. Is that the end? Yeah. Got one little announcement. Do that now? After that. After that. Okay. That concludes the meetings of the Executive and all committees, and I thank you for your attendance. I have one additional announcement. If all members could, please, if I could have your attention. There's an event to be held in the chamber immediately after this meeting, which is being hosted by Peter Adams of St Mary's. The guest speaker is Daniel Munaya, a guest speaker who will talk to members in attendance about the situation in the Middle East, and the focus will be about peace and reconciliation. Thank you very much.